Welcome to Grow Virtually, an online horticultural educational program presented by the Master Gardener Volunteers of Cobb County. Under the guidance of the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension Service, we grow gardeners.
I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker tonight, Greg Ferguson from the Georgia Hosta Society. He's been involved with it for a very long time and served as president for many years. Obviously, you can see he's one of us. Well, I'm a transplant, but he's native. We're almost native because Tony's here. He's almost a native, but not quite. Greg graduated from McEachern High School and went on to Georgia Tech to become a mechanical engineer. But despite SOPs, MOPs, control processes, machines, types, flow charts, equipment, and systems analysis, I hope I covered that well, his love of plants never stopped. And he's always found time to design, plant, and propagate his favorites, hostas. So he has a lot to share with us tonight. And so without further ado, here's Greg.
Thank you for that great introduction. I appreciate that. It's good to be with you tonight. And we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We're going to enjoy learning some things, relearning, and so forth. So I thank you for your invitation tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces. It's amazing when you're in this area all so many years, you see so many people and you cross paths again, and that's always a blessing and just a lot of fun. I guess I was recruited, or maybe I should say drafted to speak tonight, if you want to call it that, because I went to the plant sale last spring, and maybe I was like the Grinch, I guess. I saw some of the plants that were for sale over there, and I said, uh-oh, those have a virus. And a lot of you asked me about that and what that meant. And I think I probably talked to 18 or 20 people, one after the other, and Joe Washington, and just all sorts of famous people, I guess. But everybody said, "Well, what did you just say?" And so I'd repeat the description and things that you look for. But we'll cover that a little bit tonight. Hosta is a lot of fun. You guys grow hydrangeas and daylilies and all sorts of plants, a lot of companion plants, maybe ferns, and so we don't want to be a downer tonight, but you have to be careful too. It's good to know the pitfalls, the problems that you can run into with plants, but they're very forgiving. Hostas are very forgiving, and so we'll have a good time with that. The other thing is I wanted to come up with a really clever and catchy title. So I came up with Hosta 101. So maybe that's not so catchy, but that's kind of where we are, because literally I could talk about hostas for 3 or 4 hours and just nonstop because there's so much to learn. There are people that know more than I do. So just after 2 hours, we'll have a break and then we'll continue. But thank you again for your invitation. And so we'll jump into here. So as you can see, I've been here in Cobb County pretty much all my life. Went to Powder Springs Elementary, McEachern High School, Georgia Tech, Georgia State. I've been a professional engineer. I designed heating and air conditioning and plumbing for commercial buildings. And I've been doing that actually since 1988 on my own. And then I am past president. Actually, out of the last 8 years, I was president for 6 years. So I pretty well burned out after that. So turn that over to somebody else for them to burn out, right? So, but it's a lot of fun. I will mention a name that is in the hostel world. There's a man that used to be with us, George Schmidt, and he was the most knowledgeable person you have ever met in your life. He passed away about, I guess, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I would be remiss not to mention his name because he was so important in the hostel world. And so I asked him some questions. I was blessed to be able to talk to him one-on-one several times, and he gives a lot of information. Yes, Jack.
George Smith's Hosta book is one of the ones that Lisa has out here. So it's the large, thick book, and he learned Japanese to write that book.
Yes. And he made a number of trips over to Japan to see hostas in their native habitat. Actually, have not ever been moved. That's where a lot of the plants that we have here in America actually were grown over there or were native to Japan. So he was the person. He was an amazing person. And I'll show you his book up here on the screen here in a few minutes too. Okay, so now that you have a little bit about me, let me tell you a couple of other things. My love for plants came from my dad, Greg Ferguson. And I would dare say that some of you here tonight have plants that you bought from my dad back in the 60s and the 70s. I would not be surprised if that were the case. But this was my dad, Hugh Ferguson. He learned plants from his mother, my grandmother Ferguson, and she could grow anything. And I always said about my dad that he could take a plant that had been dead for 6 months, and 2 years later he'd have about 2 dozen rootings and plants from it. He was an absolutely amazing, greenest thumb I have ever known. Mine is kind of lime green, not really as green as I like for it to be. Then the other person is my mother, Estelle Ferguson, and this is a picture of their place out in Powder Springs, and they had the most beautiful azaleas, just hundreds of azaleas, all sorts of jonquils and irises, and it's just a showcase. And so this was their home. Matter of fact, my mother passed away 8 years ago, and she every day she would sweep that driveway as many as 15 or 20 times. And literally she did it so much that if you Googled their address, the picture that they took, there were 4 pictures with her there in the driveway. So that was my mother. She was great with plants too. And it was always fun to watch because my dad was a blue collar worker, and for his retirement business, he started propagating plants. He started growing boxwood hollies and jonquils and I didn't know a snowball bush was a viburnum, but he told about snowball bushes, forsythia, and so forth. So he started selling. And I'll tell you this real quick here that when he would go home from work, he would stop at subdivisions and he would knock on the door. And at first he sold from the Stark Brothers nursery catalog. Does anybody remember that? Yep. Remember that catalog? Okay, so he would stop, tell them his name, and people would buy from that catalog. Well, after a while, people would ask, well, do you have such and such plant? And he said, no, I don't have. Stark Brothers doesn't sell it, but I just happen to have one in the trunk of my car. So he always was prepared. That became his retirement business. And he had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of customers through the year, in the spring and the fall. And the thing I remember that was so great, and this brings out my enjoyment of plants. Remember what my dad did. But he would, on Saturday morning, he would get up and have his cup of coffee, and he'd go outside, and he had a powder blue Chevrolet that the back floorboard was rusted out. He had a paint can in the back floorboard. But he would load that car up with plants. He would the trunk, you could barely close the trunk lid. He had them in the back seat. They had the floorboard. They had newspapers all through the car. You couldn't sit with him because he had plants there and then the floorboard in the front. So he'd leave about 8:30, and he would go. He was so smart about this. He would go out into subdivisions where people were working in the yard, brand new subdivisions. They didn't have, just barely had grass in the yard, and he would park go up, introduce himself, and they would buy his plants right out of his car. And he would come back about 12 or 12:30 with his car empty, totally empty. So this was before Home Depot and, you know, the big box stores and all. But that was my heritage. That's where I came from. And a lot of you probably remember him. This is my house. And these are my hostas. I'm in Smyrna near the covered bridge. And in the spring, my red azaleas come out and they're beautiful. Those plants that you're looking at there came from one plant 43 or so years ago. And I got that one hosta. That's the first time I'd ever heard of a hosta. So I got that plant and I saw you could divide it. It would multiply. So I started dividing it. And so when we built this house in '86, I had about 100 plants. And so I planted them zigzagging there in the front. And you can see how they filled in. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I estimated how many plants I have in my front yard. And it's over 150,000. So that, I mean, they're just really spectacular. This is the extent of my knowledge, and I enjoyed being with you tonight. Okay, well, okay. I guess I'm going. That's all right. Okay. Let me ask you this. Let me raise your hand. How many of you are familiar with the hosta? You know what a hosta is? Okay. All right. I figured that. All right. Who do we have now? Keep your hands up. Who is an expert on hostas? Absolutely. That's right. Okay. How many of you have hostas? Yes. Okay. Everybody. Anybody not have a hosta?
We have deer.
Okay. All right. Your deer have hostas. Okay. All right. So is it let me ask you this. Let's think just a minute. Is a hosta a shade plant or a sun plant? Shade. Okay.
There's some, except for your front yard.
Except my front yard. Okay. Well, that's kind of a trick question. That wasn't fair, I guess. But it can live in either, and it kind of likes a mixture. It's like everybody knows a daylily loves the sun, loves being in full sun. It loves some water, but it can handle really heavy sun. Really, a hosta depends on the color of the leaf. If it's darker, it can handle shade a little bit more. But the ones I have back in my yard, right there, really this is the west side right here. Okay, you're looking across here. This is west. So my house is facing south. Well, there's an oak tree right here, and then there's another oak tree right here you can see in the picture. So they get a little bit of shade. And the key thing is, in the afternoon, particularly in summertime, you think about it, the west side is a bit shaded, a little bit shaded. Okay, so it's not a brutal, disastrous sun pouring down on those houses. So I really have I guess you would say in my case, I have mixed sun and shade. Okay, so they kind of like that. Now, let me ask you another question. In 39 years, how many times have I fertilized these houses? What would you guess? Zero. Y'all are smart. Have y'all ever thought about being master gardeners? That's great. Yes, that's exactly right. I have never fertilized them. Now, there are folks that will swear by Milorganite and some other fertilizers. That's fine. But for me, it has worked out that these haven't needed any food. I haven't watered them especially. I haven't divided them. I haven't done anything. I have literally, what was that commercial they used to have on television that said just set it and forget it? Okay, that's really what I've done with these hostas. Some of them are fussier than others. So you have to know your variety. And when you purchase one, you should ask, what special care do they need? That's always the smart thing to do. So hostas are basically, it depends on the color. So, and then where do they grow? And I've got a slide later on with a map. But if you'll notice, we don't have, if you go down in South Georgia, South Alabama, over in Texas, they don't do well. And I'll cover a little bit more about this later, but the reason being, there's a rule that they like to have, 40 days of 40 degrees or below. They love the cold weather. They thrive up in Michigan, up in the Great Lakes area and Illinois, up in that area, because it's cold. And you think, well, there's such short growing seasons up there that they're not going to do well, but they actually do better. Isn't that true? Is anybody from up north that's what you had? How did you do yours?
My parents just left them like you did.
Yeah.
Just around the house, and they would come up when they came out in the spring, and it was short.
Yeah.
But they lasted into the fall until we had a frost.
And they did better. They grew larger up there than they do for you here, don't
Leaves were big.
they? Okay. Is anybody else from North Country that you hear that? Yes.
I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and they were all in my backyard. I never had big things.
Right. And did you had a little bit shorter growing season than we have here in Georgia, but they actually did better there than they do here, right? Okay. And yes.
Upstate New York, the Finger Lake, the major Finger Lake, Skaneateles Lake, a lot of the homes are large and like plantations, and they line the driveways of the road with hostas on both sides, and they're huge. If you
Right. Yeah. See, so the lesson here is that we're kind of on the south end of where hostas really are happy. You can't, if you go farther south, literally, if you were to set out some hostas, they would get smaller and smaller and they disappear. And we've had people come to the Georgia Hosta Society plant sale, and people just stop by on the way on the interstate, and they said, I live in Albany, Georgia, or I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and I said, don't buy any unless you can do something with them. They said, well, can I put them in my refrigerator? Okay, I guess you can, but the thing is, that's not really the solution. So I tell them, you're going to waste your money. But here, where we live, we're in a sweet spot. We're in a good spot to grow hostas. Okay, I'm talking too much here, but I think we're covering some good ground. Here's some publications, and this is George Smith, as Jack told us about. Very, very solid book, and so you'll find the various publications out there like that. What's a hosta? It's an Eastern Asian plant. As I said, it really came from the Far East, cultivated in the West, where it's shade-tolerant foliage and loose clusters of tubular mauve or white flowers. Now, let me jump here. People ask me, do they have flowers? Well, yes, but they're not grown for the flowers. They have the flower. Lots of people say, well, they're a nuisance. I don't want the flower. Okay, that's fine. And some people will snip that stalk off with the flower. They say it looks messy. I'm not going to argue with that. That is probably true. But a lot of people will leave them. So you have two camps there. Both camps are right. It's whatever you enjoy, whatever you like. Okay, so they make a great edging plant. They come in all sorts of colors and shapes, and I mean, here you have there's probably, Jack, what would you say there's the left one? That's probably
A big one,
the little one down here with the skinny leaves.
Chartreuse Wiggles problem.
Some of the other, there's some called Wiggle, have Wiggle in the name, and then have the blues and so forth. So you can have all kinds of nice things. The American Hosta Society is the parent organization. I'll give you I'll repeat this for you a little bit later. We have shows, and they're divided by the size of the leaves. You go away from miniature all the way up to giant. And then there are all sorts of colors, all these combinations and permutations, of course. American Hosta Society has various regions. They have all sorts of states that they have a society, at least one society in each. And so you have just you can use them with ferns and all sorts of other good things. Now this is I wanted to stick this in here because I'm told that hostas grow in zones 3 through 8 the best. And so basically you can see right here the lower part of Georgia that you can barely tell, but right there there's where the line is, and that is pretty accurate. That's for sure. And then of course it'll go up into the north part of the country. Here I'll show you a few pictures of some of the plants, some of the hostas, titanium. They're a world of mouse ears, all sorts of mouse ears. There are more mouse ears than Mickey Mouse shirts. I mean, they're everywhere. Green Acres, Emily Dickinson, and that's one that people like their flower. Okay, some more flowers. You have all sorts of things. Remember Me. All right, so real quick here, I'll jump through this real quick. The Atlanta area is the southern boundary of the hosta growing range. They prefer cooler winters, longer dormant time than we have here. And basically the cold hardness, this says zones 3 to 9. Light requirements, partial sun, filtered shade, morning sun. Water requirements keep soil moist. But as you know better than I do probably, here in North Georgia, we have our clay, don't we? And we don't plant anything where that clay is going to collect water, because the roots are going to rot no matter what plant it is. So the hostas are no different from that root. So you want to make sure that you have water requirements, but that that you have a well-drained soil. That's the key. And that's one thing that George Schmidt told me. All right, early spring, they talk about fertilizing. You can do that or not do it. So in my 39 years, I've never fertilized them. This is a Japanese name, Takudama. Blue Angel. Blue Angel is a fairly large leaf. It's beautiful, beautiful plant. Guacamole. I think that was developed about 10, 15 years ago, I believe. Ventricosa is a series or group or family of varieties. Now, this is my question. To pot or not to pot? Yes, that is a question. Okay. Which is right? So which one? Tell me this. If you think you should put your hostas in pots, let me see your hand. Okay. How many say that you should put them in the ground? Okay. The answer is you're both right. Okay. Everybody's right. That depends. It's like my economics professor in college told me. He said that depends. Okay. With potting, you have to worry about drying out. So you're going to have to water a little bit more. Most of mine in my backyard are in pots. The ones in my front yard, obviously, which have done well, are in the ground. So I have success with both. Also, we have to be careful when they're in pots. It can get too cold, and if the roots freeze, then you're going to kill the plant. It's just like anything else. You think how you grow hydrangeas. Okay, how many grow hydrangeas? Everybody. Yeah, I mean, why did I even ask? Everybody grows hydrangeas. How many have rooted hydrangeas? Yeah, that's fun, isn't it? I've done that. I have some that are really nice. But you have a few things that you have to be careful about if you do it in pots. The thing about pots, you can move them around, right? I remember somebody said, you put your plant where you want it, put your pot where you want it, and enjoy it, because Martha Stewart is not coming to your garden. Okay, so both things have advantages. You don't have to worry about watering if they're in the ground. You don't have to worry about the roots freezing. So it all depends. So do what you enjoy, what really makes you happy.
One thing about that, the reason I grow mine in pots is I lost probably 50% of mine to voles.
Yes, yes. There are little critters that burrow, and they love going there better than the golden corral. I mean, it is the place for them that's the place for them to go. But you're right. And I'm going to show something in just a few minutes. And so you do really neat things with pots. You can change the pot and put different. These are minis. These are kind of in the miniature range. You got to have the right size container, good potting mix. That's a one type there. Fertilize regularly, some there. Water regularly, and then dividing and planting. All right, I'm going to jump through this one. How's my time doing? How are we doing? Where am I?
I'm not cutting you off yet. You're good.
Okay, all right. I'm watching. Okay. Everybody good so far? Nobody's going to sleep. I like that. That's good. Okay, so dividing and planting. I think everybody here probably knows how to divide plants, and your daylilies and hostas and liriope and all. So I'm not even going to cover this right here. But if you have any questions, ask your neighbor, right? Okay, and so you start out there. They start coming up. February, and you have the little pips coming up like that, and then you take a knife and you cut it. Make sure you get the roots and get some of the tops, and there you have two or more. And my wife was always frustrated because I get a nice little plant, and it had like 3 or 4 divisions, and I'd go home, I had 4 plants, and she was so frustrated. She was always frustrated because I was always dividing my plants. But I had a lot of plants, so it worked. Okay, and then you just simply pot them as you see. Hosta diseases and pests. Okay, as I told you earlier, this is kind of how you got me tonight. Is because I recognized some of the plants at the sale had virus, and it's called HVX, which stands for Hosta virus X. This was discovered, probably 20, 25 years ago. It is a bad thing. There's nothing you can say good about it. It will have what we call ink bleed. Ink bleed means that the colors really are spectacular. They may have just really model look and just really interesting, but it means that it's probably got the virus. Now you can have spreading with various varieties, but if it's not indigenous to that variety, you have a problem. Okay, and you start to kind of look at the symptoms, and I have a slide a little bit later that will give you resources to be able to do that. Okay, everything you were ever wanted to ask about. Okay, bad news. And there's no cure. And the key thing with HVX is if a plant has that virus, if it touches another plant, it will transmit it. Is that sensitive? If you have it in a certain place in your garden, dig the plant out, throw it away, put it in a bag, throw it away. Do not plant another hosta in that spot, because the ground there, the soil is contaminated, and you will spread it to the new hosta. I've heard of people that have had plants for 15 years, and all of a sudden it shows up. They say, "Well, how can that happen? Where did it come from?" Well, deer can actually spread it. Okay, rabbits can spread it, because if I don't know what it's, maybe like poison oak or something, I don't know, but it can spread from animals. But it can spread from one plant to another. The other thing is if you have a shovel, you have your clippers, whatever, if you go from one to the next, sterilize it with either alcohol or with Clorox. Okay, so that's kind of the quick version of what to look for. There are foliar nematodes. There are fungal diseases. There are all sorts of things. The various bacteria, ugly stuff, and we don't even. I mean, it's bad stuff. And I'm just going to number one pass. Okay. Yes, we know. Caught red-handed, right? Okay. All right. Yeah. I think that one was in my yard. He looks mighty familiar because I don't think I would forget that face. I believe I remember. Okay. There are voles. A good thing is wire barriers are good if you have voles and moles. And you can plant them inside there, bury those, and then they can't get through to the roots. So if you have a problem with them, you can't get the plant back, but you can plant a new one and you know where it went. And so here you see it buried like that. So they can't get to it. Rabbits can still get to that, you know. All right. Slugs, bad stuff. Good snakes can be really good control method, but you may not like a snake. So little rock frogs and what have you. There's that the guy again. Okay. So yes, I have people ask me, Greg, you have not had, you know, I had 1 year I had some a deer, and he hasn't been back. How did you get rid of it? Well, I found a good thing. That was my name. No. Here's my. Oh, and here there are physical barriers, fence, and so forth. Nothing is foolproof. Okay, just good common sense. Use your common sense about it. There are things like sprays and what have you, but when you have a rain like we had earlier this week, it's going to wash off. You're going to have to reapply it. There's no perfect solution. There are powders and what have you. Okay, this is a deer repellent from Harold McDonald in our group. And so here's my solution that I had for the deer. So I had that deer, and how can I get rid of it? Well, what I did was I moved the deer crossing sign to my neighbor's yard. No more deer. They love my neighbor's plants. So you can do all sorts of things that are really beautiful. And this time of the year, all that's gone. You don't see any. It's just bare ground. But then once March, April come, they just are beautiful. There's a two-legged pest. And Harold didn't have this in his presentation, but these, you will find these in your magazines. Say, oh, I want that red one or that purple one. No, every one of these are fake. Now this is close down here, but those, and that's close maybe, but the red ones like that, no, don't fall for it. Don't waste your money because they'll sell some of them, but don't get trapped. Okay, so a few more pictures of some hostas. I mean, just any combination, all sorts of combinations. Sun power is a really big one. Now, take out your phone. This is the most important slide in the whole presentation tonight, okay? These are some of my selected resources. And please do take out your phone, take a picture of this, because this is very, very important. This is what I want you to carry. I want you to carry with you, okay? And let me go through these very quickly. American Hosta Society, as I told you, is the parent group. Georgia Hosta Society is our Georgia society, our group locally. And we meet 4 times a year, a general meeting 4 times a year. One of those is an auction. We have a couple of auctions actually. Have a lot of fun. It's a great time, great people. We have in May, we have a leaf show. There's a contest. People bring a leaf from each, several leaves. And so that they're judged on the size and beauty and so forth. On the outside in the parking lot, I'm the vendor liaison for our sale. And so we have generally 3 or 4 vendors that have hundreds of hostas. And then we'll try to have a companion plant, the salesperson too. Third one is the one especially when you print out your picture, put a big circle around Hosta Library. And I'm going to show you something in just a minute. We're going to go to a website and I'm going to show you that. Hosta Library has every answer that you could ever imagine asking about hostas. I guarantee you. It's alphabetized. You can click on an S or you can click on a B or whatever. It'll carry you to a whole list of hostas start with that letter. It is also filtered by colors. It's filtered by size. It has huge resources about Hosta virus X, including some videos of some of the researchers who know, just amazing wealth of information about that. So hostalibrary.org. These are several of very reputable Hosta salespeople or gardens. Pine Forest. I have been down to Richard Jolly's place down there. He has thousands of hostas, beautiful and all healthy. Silver's Elbert is here in the Atlanta area. Brian White is up in the Knoxville area. Met him a couple of years ago. Green Hill Farm over in North Carolina. And then there's another source called hostalist.org that Don Rawson, who is a hybridizer, has put together. So take that picture. This is important too. Whom to avoid. Do not buy from Home Depot, Lowe's, and so forth. What you call the big box stores. Let me tell you why. It's not because I have, I buy from Home Depot, but not my plants, okay? Especially not hostas. The overseas growers, particularly like over in the Netherlands, mass produce in the fields. They mass produce their hostas. And the machinery that they use, when there's Hosta virus X in it, it just spreads it to the whole thing. And then those plants are shipped over here and they're sold all over the country, particularly with the big box stores, because they can get a good wholesale price to sell them for. If you know of particular offenders, Proven Winners, I've heard, has had a little bit of a problem with HVX. I know they do well with other plants, but and especially now, anybody that doesn't know about the HVX, if they're growing it, say, here, isn't this a beautiful, if they don't know what it is, just be real careful there. But these are the ones to be careful of. So there are your questions. So let me open it up. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Is there a particular hosta that can grow at full shade?
Oh, yes. But I'd say, let me ask Jack and Jane, what full shade?
The blue ones. Most of the blue ones will do better in full shade.
Yeah.
Blue, but either blue ones.
So if you'll go to the Hosta Library and tab B, they have like this whole list of blues. And then there's another filter that you can click for colors, and you can go to blue. So generally, the darker the plant, darker the leaf, the deeper shade it can tolerate. And the lighter, remember what happens here, the blue and the green is chlorophyll. And you all know about chlorophyll. We learned that back in 10th grade biology, right? But the chlorophyll is what makes the food for the plant. And so the more chlorophyll you have, the more, the healthier and better, more well-fed the plant is, you see. That's why the darker plant, the darker color can be in the shade because it has more capacity to absorb sun, even though it's in the shade. That's the Mr. Wizard explanation. Okay, all right, that's a good question, thank you.
Right.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
You said you've mentioned some of the symptoms of that virus
Yes,
to identify,
yes.
but I don't remember. you
Okay,
saying that.
yeah, I kind of buzzed through that real quick because I'm still waiting for 2 hours to do an intermission. Now, basically, you've got one thing is ink bleed. And so when you look at the leaf, if you see it irregularly moving or spreading in that leaf, it may just be wavy. It doesn't have the symmetry. Okay,
Pigmentation washes out.
what's that?
The pigmentation.
Pigmentation washes out. Exactly, that's correct. Another symptom is they will have undulation, or they'll kind of wavy, but it's not regular. Now my plants in my front yard are called Undulata albumarginata. Okay, undulata means undulating, right? So the leaf has a little bit of waviness to it. Albo means white. Marginata means marginata, right? So you've got, the leaf has green, but it has a white around the edges, but it has an undulation. That's a natural genetic, correct undulation, all right, or waviness. But if there's an irregularity to it, it's suspect. Now, and there are probably a couple more, but those are the main ones that are really obvious. I think the ones I saw at the sale were had both of those things happen, which is why I was so adamant about it. One more quick thing about the HVX. There is a test. You can get test strips, but you have to cash in a war bond to buy them. They're so expensive. But if you have a hosta that you pay $50 for, I mean, there are people that pay a couple or $300 for one plant. But if you spend a lot of money on a hosta and it's really special to you, you may want to do it. If you have a whole area that's suspect, you may want to invest because you don't have to dig them up and throw them away. It's sad. It really is. So there is a test, but it's very expensive. The best thing is just, go to that website, look at that. That will help you to identify. We have a question over here. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I had heard that,
Not always. They can be. They can be variations. There are people that hybridize. And I'm not even going to go into that, but you all, most master gardeners understand hybridization. But hostas can be hybridized. You can get bigger flowers, you can get different colors, different shapes, all these things. And, they throw away hundreds of hostas that just don't really mean anything. But it's not necessarily a virus. Because all the varieties, and I think there are several thousand, right? Like eight or 10,000, I think, varieties of hostas. Think about that, So those were obtained by either someone going out and saying, wow, that's beautiful, look at that, isn't that great? And they dig it up with the person, owner's permission, of course. You would do that, would you? Okay, I'm not Catholic, so I can't take confession. Okay,
Other,
but that's a good question. Thanks.
Marnie and then Deb.
I'm gonna ask you, Gibbs Gardens is known for trimming their hostas, the outer leaves. What do you think about that?
As long as it's done without spreading, potentially spreading that virus. It's like, I think of, people espalier plants, bushes, shrubs, and so on. So I think it's a preference, totally a preference. It doesn't hurt them as long as I go back to the chlorophyll. If you cut off all the, I have people ask me, well, it's October, we haven't had a frost yet, and I still have some green leaves on my hostas. Let them get that last little bit of energy before they go dormant for the winter. So it's a preference, okay, but to me, it's just logical. You don't want to trim that source of energy away from it, because they'll get smaller and smaller.
Deb had a question.
Yes.
Okay, you said basically for your virus, dig it up, throw away your plant, but don't put another hosta there. How long? I mean, how long is that whole?
Put something else in there, put a fern, put some other plant, but not a hosta. In the hostas, I wish I could give you better news than that, but no, they haven't determined yet how long you let it lie fallow. I know, I remember, and I can't grow tomatoes worth anything. I just buy them at legal, okay? But I know you have VFN, verticillium, fusarium, and nematode, VFN resistant, and all that sort of thing. But they say you rotate your tomatoes, put them in another place, keep moving them, because those VFN will concentrate in that spot. Am I right there? You guys, nobody got that than I did. But yeah, so they don't know. To answer your question, they do not know. But you have to assume that it's probably going to be pretty well forever. The other thing is you can't sanitize the soil. I think they've tried UV light and all sorts of things to sanitize the soil. Different chemicals, bleach, vinegar, other things, but they haven't found anything that will eliminate it from the soil. Remember the slide I said there's no cure. We hope somebody will find it, but for right now we don't know. There's none. Okay, that's a good question. Thank you, man.
Okay, Greg, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We hope that you will find our information informative and helpful. Thanks for watching, and please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.